two things coming off what you're saying, because one of the things I know, I'm listening to you, and I'm just thinking, I remember back in the 90s, like sort of as I was starting to cover environmental topics as a journalist, just as a reporter, mapping projects were just getting underway, trying to like biodiversity hotspots and people don't get, like, it sounds, I remember I was working on the Everglades restoration project, the $8 billion public works project, right? The largest conservation effort ever done. And we were out at midnight one night, we were doing an alligator survey. So you go around in a boat and you shine your flashlight and you look for eye shine, and then you try to tape measure the alligator. And we're running around and we're doing this all night. And I finally had turned to the lead scientist and said, why are we doing this? And he said, well, we need baseline data. And I said, what do you mean? Because we spent $8 billion to restore sheep flow to the Everglades. The way you measure the health of an ecosystem, one of the easy ways is the keystone predator. How many major predators do you have? This easy way to determine the health of an ecosystem. They hadn't even done the work. So literally, it was this $8 billion public works project. Nobody even knew what victory looked like. They had not, like, they hadn't measured anything. And I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, the mapping, the counting, the basic science we're so far behind the eight ball on this stuff. And then when I hear you talk about, we just put out a map of all the super carbon rich areas, one of the things I think to myself is, oh my God, the tech has come so far from, like, being in a boat with a flashlight, shining a flashlight into the Everglades trying to measure an alligator. And that, like, that in itself, from an environmental perspective, it's such a huge victory. People don't talk about it. Even technology not impacting the environment, but from a historical perspective, God, I remember when we couldn't even figure out how many trees were in a rainforest or which are the biodiverse hotspots that we want to protect, and all those kinds of questions. So the first thing I wanted to say is I just wanted your opinion on that, like what you've seen in conservation that way, like the tech that nobody pays attention to, but the fact that we can now do that, it's amazing to me. That was the first place I wanted to sort of start.
Well, Stephen, part of the reason why he was probably doing that is also it's fun to be out in the boat looking for giant predators with the flashlights, right? So just don't forget that there's a huge resonance of what we do that, has this excitement to it. And otherwise, why would we do this? But there are some amazing things that are happening right now. So we have technology, for example, that, uses AI to detect wildlife and instantaneously tell you what it is based even on a fragment of a photo. So thousands of millions of images immediately processed, then made immediately available to managers. We have programs that can send alerts to cell phones about fires in very remote areas, like in Bolivia, a forest fire in Bolivia. A ranger living way out there with no other connectivity will get like cell phone messages that allow them to prepare and detect and fight fires, right? So there is just these, the restoration principles that we're using for coral right now, like our ability to grow coral in labs and get coral from places that are, super warm and then spread them to other places. We're doing 1 million polyps of coral in Colombia now, like at a bigger scale. And the restoration we're doing is also now going up to massive scale. So we have a project, for example, with MasterCard to restore 100 million trees. So the scale has grown, and that's really because technology is allowing us to do things now at scale. And that's exciting.
Yeah, a friend of mine, Lawrence Fletcher, is a friend of mine. He's the inventor of tree planting drones. So the ones that they were using to restore mangroves in Myanmar, was his creation, and we've been doing some of that work in and around fire. It turns out the same drones that you can use for reforestation, you can repurpose and use them hurling instead of seed pod missiles that plant a tree. You can put paintball missiles that fight forest fires. You can use the same drones to pull woody biomass out of the forests as well to get the dead trees out of the forest so the fuel loads go down. And we're trying to take those, so the drones basically work 365 days a year. It's not just planting trees during tree planting season. It's working all the way year round, and it's exciting because, as you can plant 100,000 trees in an afternoon with a drone.
and also just the ability to link these things up. So just in December, I went to visit one of our projects in in southern Kenya. And these are the Chulu Hills, what Hemingway wrote of the green hills of Africa. They're the hills that feed Tsavo National Park, the biggest national park in Kenya and one of the biggest in the world, as well as Mombasa, the second biggest city in Kenya. And they have suffered an unbelievable drought. For the last 2 years, the rains have skipped, and big animals and cattle and livestock have just been decimated. But in the Chulus, the communities, about 140,000 people, mostly Maasai, but not all, have been essentially protected. They've been able to get water, they have fodder, and they also have a source of income. And the reason for that is because they have managed to quantify the carbon in the Chulus, and with our help, they've managed to put that up on the market. And companies like Apple and Netflix and Gucci have come in and bought those credits that now provide those communities around $2 to $3 million a year, without any philanthropic help. Now, you just think about this. It's a Maasai, it's a nomadic tribal community in Kenya that is quite literally linked to my iPhone. To me, that is a miracle. And that's the way we're going to get scale in conservation, right? Once we can make that production and protection model really fit with each other. So to me, that was like an amazing thing, because I'm so tired of just philanthropy being the only driver of conservation. I mean, imagine if we could get climate change to pay for itself, or like if you can get instead of people seeing it as sort of commonplace, you got to dump money in, but it's actually generating income for us.
If what you've heard on Flow Research Collective Radio has been helpful, please consider doing us a solid and leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening to this. Reviews help us connect to a wider audience so we can get these peak performance principles out to more people.